The disgraced former president attended a Q&A session at the Economic Club of New York on Thursday and was asked if he would commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable and what specific piece of legislation he would support for it. And his answer was described by one conservative economist as him sounding like the student who hadn't studied for the test and was simply making up numbers.
What specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue, but I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people.
The Dunning-Kruger effect happens when someone who isn't especially knowledgeable in a particular area overestimates how much they know or how good they are at something. And this faulty perception is a type of what psychologists call cognitive bias. The Dunning-Kruger effect was named after two Cornell University psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, and they coined the term in a paper on their observations of this behavior back in 1999. Basically, people with this type don't know that they are ignorant of their own ignorance. Enter Donald Trump. Over time, this bias-based decision-making can have short and long-term consequences. It can bleed into important parts of your life, like relationships and work. It may even affect your general world view. Now, combine the Dunning-Kruger effect with Donald Trump's malignant narcissism, and the answer that he gave to this childcare question puts both on full show. Because Donald Trump, firstly, as a narcissist, does not believe that other people are smarter than him. He thinks that he has the upper hand on everything. We heard that with COVID, where he said it'll be gone. In a couple of days, it'll be gone. That was him just using his sense of self. He believed that it would go away, and therefore it would go away. And it also applied to when he said that there was no point in testing people to see if they had coronavirus, because the more people you test, the more cases you will find, and then the numbers will go up. Now just think about that. Think about that logic. That he, as a narcissist, believes that the fewer people that you test means that therefore there will be fewer cases. Completely ignoring the fact that people have got coronavirus and are suffering and are dying to the tune of 1.2 million people. That is the extent of his ego, of his narcissistic personality disorder, and of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where he is trying to convince people that testing fewer people for coronavirus means there will be fewer cases found. He said it out loud. I mean, I'm not even making this up.
We have more cases than anybody in the world. But why? Because we do more testing. When you test, you have a case. If we didn't do any testing, we would have very few cases. They don't want to write that.
And so when it comes to the answer that he gave on childcare, the first point I would make is that he doesn't know what childcare is. And to me, that was absolutely clear. He was just, word salading the answer because he was thinking childcare. What is childcare? It must be the care of children. So you'll notice in the clip that he says in other countries childcare isn't necessary, but here in America it's necessary. What did he mean by that?
Look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it.
I have translated it to mean that in kind of third world countries, uncivilized countries, children are allowed to be left in the street to fend for themselves. And we therefore have to care for children because other countries don't. I mean, it really is simple as that. Childcare for him was never a thing as a child because, of course, he was brought up by nannies, people who were paid employees of the Trump household. And so to him, the idea that your parents can't afford someone to look after you and have to go out and work and rely on family members or neighbors to kind of juggle things, it just does not compute for him. He is a privileged person. He was born with a silver or probably gold spoon in his mouth. So he then has to think on his feet, okay, childcare. So those countries, you don't have to care for children, but here in America you do. And then he offered his solution, which is that we have to because we put America first. So I will take care of all of this. Well, that's Donald Trump advocating for socialism, something that his supporters supposedly have no interest in. The idea of the government looking after people. MAGA Republicans and conservatives, they don't want the government looking after people. They think people should work hard and pay for themselves. So Donald Trump, again, is on the ropes. Well, we're going to look after everybody. Well, how? How did he suggest that that is done? He then claimed that this plan for tariffs is the solution. A plan that is completely flawed, a plan that economists have said has no value and will end up costing the American public more. And that is the concern, isn't it? Because we now know it happened during his presidency that all of these Chinese tariffs that he imposed ended up costing either the consumer or the wholesaler or the retailer here in America. It was not paid by the Chinese. And that is his entire economic plan for the future. Tariffs. They don't work. Again, it is the Dunning-Kruger effect. It is him closing his eyes and thinking, if I wish it, my ego thinks it must come true. That anything he says is fact when he doesn't know anything about anything. It is so interesting to me that somebody who is so completely flawed is the reason why some people are like, yeah, that's my guy. I'm voting for him. The guy who appears to know nothing about anything and yet has managed to build a platform for himself, convincing people that he knows something about everything or indeed everything about everything. Most of us see through it. Most of us, our alarm goes off and we're like, nah, that's not true. And I trust that the American people are smarter than Donald Trump. And I trust that, unlike him, where he thinks everyone is as stupid as he is, that actually America will rise to the occasion in November. So don't look to the debate as being a barometer for whether or not Kamala Harris is the right candidate. She's the right candidate because she's not Donald Trump.
If we didn't do any testing, we would have very few cases.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.